Welcome everyone. I am Rosalind Mishra and today we will be discussing one of the units of Pharmaceutical Inorganic Chemistry. Pharmaceutical Inorganic Chemistry. So the unit which we will be dealing today is your unit 3. Okay. So first let us discuss, before getting to know about the contents of unit 3, we will first have a small glance. We will just try and understand what is pharmaceutical inorganic chemistry. Well, actually, pharmaceutical inorganic chemistry is the branch of chemistry that deals with inorganic substances. It is the branch of pharmacy or chemistry that deals with inorganic substances. We get to know about the pharmacological importance, the therapeutic activity, physical characteristics, chemical characteristics, analytical methods of inorganic compounds which are of pharmaceutical importance. This is what we are going to deal in our subject of pharmaceutical inorganic chemistry. So now moving on to our unit 3. Unit 4, Our unit 4, we will be dealing with expectorants. The first topic which we shall be discussing today would be expectorants. Next, we will be learning about emetics. Next, we will be dealing with hematinics, followed by poison and antidotes, followed by astringents, So, we shall be looking into details about these side headings. Alright. Now, what is an expectorant? Well, moving on to our first slide. Before understanding the terminology expectorant, first I'll give you a short introduction about cough. What is meant by cough? Well, cough, a productive reflex which helps to expel irritant matter from the respiratory tract. What is meant by cough? Well, it is a reflux. It is a productive reflux which helps in expelling out, in removing out. It helps in removing out irritant matter. It helps in removing out irritant matter from the respiratory tract. It may be productive or non-productive. It may be productive or non-productive. Now, where does expectorant come into picture? Well, what is an expectorant? An expectorant are drugs that help in removing sputum. It helps in removing sputum or phlegm from the respiratory tract, either by increasing the fluidity of the sputum or by increasing the volume of the fluid that has to be expelled from the respiratory tract. So, what is an expectorant? It is a drug that helps in removing sputum. Clear, all of you? How does it expel the sputum? How does it remove the sputum? On what mechanism does an expectorant work? How does an expectorant remove the sputum out of the respiratory tract? By two mechanisms. It works by two mechanisms. What are they? Number one, it either increases the fluidity or it decreases the viscosity of the sputum, or it increases the volume of the fluid that has to be expelled out of the respiratory tract by coughing. Alright. So, either the fluidity is increased, either the fluidity of the sputum is increased, or the viscosity of the sputum is decreased. Increasing the fluidity or decreasing the viscosity of the sputum. expectorants can expel out the phlegm or the sputum from the respiratory tract. Alright, clear all of you? Very simple. Expectorants works on the basis of two mechanisms. Number one, it either increases the fluidity or decreases the viscosity. Mechanism number two, it increases the volume of fluid. So, it increases the tendency to cough so that more fluid could be removed or expelled out. So, this is what an expectorant does. Moving on further, understanding expectorants better. Expectorants are medications or natural ingredients that help clear mucus from the airways. Alright, these are medications. This could either be natural or could be synthetic. Alright, they help in clearing out the mucus from the respiratory tract. They are used in the treatment of various coughs which typically occur with cold, the one which is related to cold. Examples of inorganic expectorants are ammonium chloride, potassium iodide, sodium iodide and other related substance. Ammonium chloride, so potassium iodide, sodium iodide and other related substances. Now, let us understand expectorants in detail. Alright, let us see the classification of expectorants. Expectorants can be classified pharmacologically into two subheadings. Alright, if we go for looking into the pharmacological classification of expectorants, then there are two subheadings. Number one being sedative expectorants, the second one being stimulant expectorant, sedative expectorant and stimulant expectorants. Sedative expectorant, they cause sedation, though they help in clearing out the mucus, but they even cause sedation. So, examples, let us look into ammonium chloride, potassium iodide. These two come under the subheading of sedative expectorants. Moving on towards stimulant expectorants. How does this, what are the examples of stimulant expectorants? Well, eucalyptus, lemon. These are naturally occurring expectorants which stimulate cough and helps in removing out the sputum or the mucus from the airways. Now moving on further, we will look into details about sedative expectorants. What are these sedative expectorants? These are stomach irritant expectorants. These are stomach irritant expectorants which are able to produce their effect through stimulation of gastric refluxes. They act on the stomach. They stimulate the gastric reflux due to which cough occurs. For example, bitter drugs like Ipecac, Senega, Indian squill. These are a few examples of sedative expectorants. Where do these sedative expectorants work? What is the site of action for the sedative expectorants? Well, the sedative expectorants are stomach irritant. They are stomach irritants. They produce their effect through stimulation of gastric refluxes. Thing to remember, how does a sedative expectorant show their action? By stimulating the gastric refluxes. Natural examples, natural compounds which belong to the category of sedative expectorants are Ipecac, Senega, Indian squill. Now, moving on towards inorganic compounds which act as sedative expectorants. For example, antimony, potassium tartarate, ammonium chloride, sodium citrate and potassium iodide. These are a few examples of inorganic compounds which might act as sedative expectorants. Now, let us understand what is stimulant expectorants. Look, we just had a brief introduction about expectorants, number one. Then we looked into sedative expectorants. How does a sedative expectorant work? By stimulating the gastric reflux. Now we will look into the second category of expectorant, which is stimulant expectorant. So, these are the expectorants which bring about stimulation of the secretory cells of the respiratory tracts, directly or indirectly. Sedative expectorants, they stimulate the gastric refluxes. Alright, whereas stimulant expectorants, what do? They stimulate the secretory cells of the respiratory tract directly. Since these drugs stimulate secretion, more fluid in respiratory tract and sputum is diluted. See, stimulant expectorants, they act directly on the respiratory tract. Alright, they stimulate the secretory cells of the respiratory tract. So, what happens in this case is, the mucus which is released out, first of all its fluidity is increased, plus the volume of the mucus which is being excreted out is also increased. Alright, the secretion of more fluid occur in the case of ingesting stimulant expectorants. Clear all of you? Now the example of stimulant expectorant is eucalyptus, lemon and anise. These are natural stimulant expectorants. Eucalyptus, lemon and anise. Moving on further, let us understand the theory upon which our expectorants work. On which theory is the activity of expectorants based? See, botanical expectorants act to increase the quantity, decrease the viscosity and promote expulsion of the secretion of the respiratory mucous membranes. Alright, so what happens here is, in the case of botanical expectorants, that means the ones which are plant derived, what do? They increase the quantity of the sputum which is being released. Alright, they increase the quantity of the sputum which is being released. They decrease the viscosity of the mucus. They decrease the viscosity of the mucus so that it can be easily removed out, so that it is flowable. It can be easily removed out. Hence, promote expulsion. Hence, they promote the expulsion of the secretions of respiratory mucous membranes. So, all in all, overall, what does a botanical expectorant do? They help in removing the sputum from the respiratory tract. How do they do? The next question arises. Number one question would be, what is the action of botanical expectorants? So, the answer to this is, the answer to what is, they remove the sputum from the respiratory tract. Now, the second question which should arise immediately is, how do they do this? How do botanical expectorants help in removing the sputum? By decreasing the viscosity and increasing the fluidity of the sputum or mucus. Hence, promotes expulsion through the respiratory tract. Simple. Next, some expectorants are also antitussives. Lobelia inflata, a commonly used expectorant, helps to promote cough reflex. It is also used as antitussive. Lobelia inflata. Moving on further. Lobelia may be more effective at clearing the lungs than other expectorants when the cough becomes productive, when the cough is productive. See, because lobelia has both the effects, antitussive effect as well as expectorant, that is, it increases cough reflex, due to which more cough happens, hence more mucus or sputum is expelled out. Plus it acts as an expectorant. That is, it reduces the viscosity and increases the fluidity of the sputum. Therefore, it has got dual activity. Hence, we can say that when the cough is productive, when it produces mucus, then lobelia could be a choice of drug. Other commonly used expectorants include Glycyrrhiza glabra, Pelargonium solides, next Hedera helix and wild cherry bark. Now, in our today's class, we will be looking into one expectorant in detail. Alright, we will be looking into one expectorant in detail, which is potassium iodide. Potassium iodide. What is the chemical formula of potassium iodide? It is written as Ki. Potassium iodide, also written as Ki. It has got a molecular weight of 166 gram per mole. It has got a molecular weight of 166 gram per mole. It belongs to the category of expectorant. It belongs to the category of expectorants. Now we will see the preparation of potassium iodide. Potassium iodide is prepared by the action of iodine on moist iron fillings. When iodide reacts, iodide molecule I2 reacts with iron filling, moist iron filling, to form ferroferric iodide. To form ferroferric iodide. Ferroferric iodide. Fe2.2Fei3. Fe2.2Fei3. Alright. This is a two-step reaction. In step number 1, potassium iodide reacts with iodine reacts with iron fillings to form ferroferric iodide, which is Fei2.Fei3. This ferroferric iodide in step number 2 is decomposed in the presence of potassium carbonate. In the presence of potassium carbonate to form 8 molecules of potassium iodide. Other remaining substances are excluded out. Alright, so how is a potassium iodide molecule synthesized? Iodine reacts with iron filling to form ferroferric iodide. This ferroferric iodide is decomposed in the presence of potassium carbonate K2CO3 to form potassium iodide. Now moving on further. The ferroferric oxide, which is formed in the previous step, this is ferroferric oxide. Ferroferric oxide. Ferroferric oxide. Okay. Plus potassium iodide. Plus potassium iodide. This ferroferric oxide is filtered out. Then the filtrate which is remaining is concentrated to get potassium iodide. It may be purified by recrystallization procedure. Step number 2. Potassium iodide can also be prepared by reacting iodine with hot solution of potassium hydroxide. Iodine may also be treated with hot solution of potassium hydroxide and potassium iodide is removed out. Ki gets removed out. 5 molecules of Ki gets removed out. Potassium iodide is prepared by reacting iodine with a hot solution of potassium hydroxide. It is mainly used in the form of a saturated solution. 100 grams of potassium iodide is added to 100 ml of water. This equates to approximately 50 mg per drop. The solution is usually added to milk, fruit juice before drinking. So this is the final form which can be used. Now, properties. Potassium iodide, as we have already discussed, has a molecular weight of 166 gram per mole. It has a density of 3.12 gram per centimeter cube. It has a boiling point of 1330 degrees Celsius. It has a melting point of 681 degrees Celsius. It is odorless, saline, bitter in taste. It is odorless, saline, bitter in taste, soluble in water, glycerine, alcohol and acetone. If we look into the solubility, it is soluble in water, glycerine, alcohol and acetone. Potassium iodide, if we look into the chemical properties, potassium iodide can be oxidized into an iodine molecule by introducing an oxidizing agent. For example, potassium iodide 2Ki plus an oxidizing agent, which is chlorine. Alright, when potassium iodide reacts with an oxidizing agent, then KCl, potassium chloride, is produced along with removal of iodine molecule. So potassium iodide can be oxidized into iodine in the presence of oxidizing reagent. This compound is used as an iodide source in several organic synthesis reactions. One such example is the synthesis of iodides from diazonium salts of arenes. This is one of the chemical properties where iodide can be removed or iodide can be obtained by oxidizing potassium iodide. Now, we will look into the uses of potassium iodide. It is used internally for supplying iodine for the treatment of thyroid deficiency. It can also be used as expectorant in cough mixture and saline diuretics. Alright, it is used for supplying iodine, hence used internally. It can also be used as expectorant in cough mixture. It is used as a nutritional supplement in human diet as well as in animal feed. It is used in table salt as the most common additive. It is used to avoid the loss of iodine due to oxidation from salts. Potassium iodide is added in salts in order to prevent the oxidation of iodine. It is used in the treatment of hyperthyroidism. It helps in promoting hormonal balance. It helps to filter out chlorides, bromides, fluorides and mercury from cells and tissues. It is used as an expectorant to break up the mucus so the patient can breathe easily. It can help in shrinking the size of the thyroid gland and also decrease the number of thyroid hormones produced. Potassium iodide is used to loosen and break up mucus in our airways. That is an expectorant action, the one which we had just learnt. This helps you cough up the mucus so you can breathe more easily. If you have a long-term lung problem, this medication can be given in the form of expectorants. Potassium iodide is also used along with anti-thyroid medicines, as we had just discussed, to prepare thyroid gland for surgical removal, to treat certain overreactive thyroid conditions and to protect the thyroid in radiation exposure emergency. So these were a few medical uses and chemical uses of potassium iodide. This is the reference for today's matter, all of you. Please have a look into it. Thank you.